Looks like we're streaming and we are live on YouTube there. So it looks like we're good to go. We do have a quorum. Seeing that it is almost 10 after, I will officially start the meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. Our agenda is divided into 2 sections. The first portion of our agenda is a public workshop. This is for those of you who are joining us and are new to this process. A public workshop is an opportunity for the board to review an application where the public is invited to attend the meeting and be able to gather some of the facts that we're asking for on the application. It's an opportunity for us to make sure an application is complete, or if there are any questions the board has, we can get those lined up. So when a project moves to the public hearing phase, we get a complete application for the applicant to be able to present and have considered. And also the application is complete for public comment when it comes in. So with that, I will open up the public workshop portion of our meeting. We do have one case for us for the public workshop. This is an opportunity for staff and the board to discuss cases. So we won't be hearing from the applicant in this case, but this will give us an opportunity to review the application, provide some questions, and then staff will reach out to the applicant so we can have those questions addressed or update an application for when the project goes to a public hearing. So with that, Sam, if you would like to walk us through 618 Delaware Avenue, please.
So the public workshop agenda item, we have project 469, area variance 106. The applicant is Saxton Signs, 618 Delaware Avenue. The zone is mixed use community urban, and the application is to allow for an 11-foot tall freestanding sign where the maximum height permitted is 8 feet. So here's the project location, and the can you guys see my mouse? The proposed sign would be right here where my cursor is. So here's what they're proposing. So the application is for the oval header on top. The bottom part is already existing. So they're up to their 8 feet already. So what they're proposing would be to go up to 11 feet and they're within their square footage allowance, even with the additional header. So here's what's existing. Here's the.
Can you go back to the existing? So that monument sign is not there currently.
From what the applicant has told me, it has been installed since.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was approved. Actually, yeah. Here's the provision of the ordinance that's being challenged. So the maximum height that they would be allowed in the MUCU district would be 8 feet for a freestanding sign. Going to the area variance review criteria. Criteria 1, character of the neighborhood. The applicant responded that this is an existing sign and that the additional height would have no negative impact. Alternatives considered. The applicant stated that the header is needed for traffic safety and to make the tenant's presence there more visible from the road.
Not alternatives considered. Okay.
Whether the requested area variance is substantial, the applicant responded that the 3 feet of relief being sought is minimal. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood, the applicant responded that this will have a positive impact on the neighborhood and on traffic flow. Criteria 5, whether this was self-created, the applicant responded that the need is self-created, and I don't know necessarily that it is really relevant to the variance, but the permit was issued a little while back, like as an error. So the sign has been manufactured. So the permit was issued because of an error, and then we had to pull it back. But the sign exists; it just hasn't been installed.
Well, that is unfortunate. The only problem is we're not obligated to correct mistakes of departments issuing permits. But can we go back through do you have more slides for us?
That's it.
Okay. If we want to go back to the first item, does anybody have any questions about the location or the structure of the sign before we get into the area variance review criteria? I think we understand where it is.
It'll be backlit with no changeable text.
I mean that might require some more information. So the sign as it is now, the area in blue, which looks like it's illustrating items regarding vehicle maintenance, is that part of the sign electronic, or is that a static sign?
I would have to look at the original permit.
Okay.
But I can get that information.
Okay.
Oh, actually, yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it'll be changeable.
Changeable text.
Okay, changeable images.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe there's a current sign on the building advertising the tenant as AAA. So I think just a quick site visit will probably clarify that, but I believe that's the case currently. So we should have that as part of the record. If there is existing signage on the building identifying its purpose or tenant, that would be useful. Can we go into the application? Okay, so this question really doesn't speak to the character of the neighborhood and height and scale of signs. Are there other non-conforming signs in the neighborhood? I think they should tie that back to other signs within the neighborhood and the zone for which they're requesting the sign for. And have there been any other signs that have been granted variances for in this particular area as well?
Right. And I do see the applicant on the call, so they're listening.
Okay, great. And again, we'll be able to have these questions walked through at the public workshop. So I appreciate their being here and joining us this evening, or the public hearing rather. Any other questions from folks about this particular item of the 5-part test?
I think just piggybacking off that, I know in the last slide we just looked at, it mentioned that the sign they currently have is similar to their neighbor's Sano Rubin. I think if we had a picture of that for comparison and something that just might be helpful.
Yeah, some of the dimensions would help if they're assessing that the height and square footage are the same. Good point. Can we go to the next element of the application?
I mean, and just, I think you already said it, but they just should talk about the character of the neighborhood, right? Like, I mean, Delaware Avenue, right? Like, but that area of Delaware Avenue may be more high traffic, less, like, I don't know. Like, specifically, how does that neighborhood and that sign may affect that neighborhood and its character?
It's kind of a unique area of the city between 85 and the bridge over the Normanskill. So, okay. Or not 85, 87. Can we go to the next item? So they really need to answer this question. It doesn't speak to alternatives considered. For example, if the sign could be smaller, I understand that it may have been manufactured already. If there is another portion of the monument which could feature the logo of the operation, if the changeable, it seems to me if that changeable text, the elements of the sign which are changeable, if that could feature the logo of the organization as it cycles through, would accomplish the element of the desire of the applicant without needing a variance. So here they really need to go through alternatives considered, and the board is obligated to require the applicant to look at the minimum variance necessary to achieve the benefit. So that really needs to be teased out in the application. If they are making the case that the header is needed for traffic safety, that needs to be something that needs to be discussed in the application elsewhere, but not for alternative considered. Any other questions, comments about that?
Sam, could you cycle back to the close-up of the sign? Yeah, I think, to kind of reiterate what you were saying, Martin, that, I mean, if we're talking about traffic safety, that sample text they have there seems like it would be an impediment to traffic safety, trying to read that as you're passing by. So, and again, maybe that isn't the right section to flush that out, but just more information on, how to make this all work if this is the type of text we're looking at.
Yeah, my thought is, other than Sano Ruben, that's in a cemetery, there's very few businesses or competing signs on that side of on that stretch of Delaware Avenue. So it's not a matter of identifying yourself out of the clutter to me, where a bigger sign equals more visibility, especially if there's one existing on the building. So I think the applicant should be able to tease that out if that's the case, that it's really a location that needs more visibility. Can we go to the next element of the application for substantiality? So again, we're going from 8 feet to 11 feet. So there's a percentage above the standard, which I'm not going to do in my head, but the applicant should discuss whether that they consider that departure to be minimal, and why they believe that that's the case.
I think it was the key being why they think that it's minimal and not substantial. And I think part of the why is, right, comparing with what exists around what has been allowed in the past, and the need.
Yeah, if I'm doing my percent change calculator right here, 8 to 11 is a 37.5%
Yes,
change. So I would be interested to hear the justification for that.
Yeah, nearly 40% departure could be considered a significant departure. So we want to be able to hear some more from the applicant on that. Thanks for doing that math. Can we go to the next element? So if they're going to dive into positive impact on the neighborhood, it'd be interesting to hear their perspective on how it creates a positive impact on the neighborhood and traffic flow. If the sign is going to encourage people to slow down, I'm sure that would be welcomed by people that live or do business in the area. But those elements need to be teased out, and I can understand traditionally for signs, we have we have not asked for any material about drainage or dust, noise, or odor, which would be interesting if a sign was contributing to those issues, but I'll leave that there.
Yeah, was there, Sam, can you remind us? So I know the bottom half is digital, but was the top, the addition like illuminated or anything? Like you didn't say that there was, I don't remember seeing anything about like exterior lighting on it, but I was curious if the AAA component was itself illuminated or.
It's backlit, but no changeable text.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So impact on the environment should address, lighting, even if it's minimal. It should
Is it
address.
being lit 24 hours a day? Is it not? Those are good questions to be able to provide to supplement the application. Very straightforward, but 99.9% of the applications we get are self-graded. It's an unusual circumstance when they're not. So. Okay. Any other questions about that application before we close out the public workshop portion? Not hearing any. That's thank you. So Sam, if you could reach out to the applicant, relay our questions, we can work on getting those so we have a really great application with which to go to public hearing next time we hear it. With that, we'll close the public workshop portion of the agenda. At this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing portion of our meeting. At this point, staff will walk us through a refresher on some applications. We have 2 applications before us. Any possible changes that have taken place or additional supplementary material that was provided to us after we had the first opportunity to review those, at which point the applicant will have an opportunity to discuss the application and the merits of which, be able to respond to some of the board's questions. When the board has completed their questions, we'll turn it over to the public hearing portion, or not the public hearing, but we'll turn it over for members of the public to be able to speak for or against the application. Members of the public have 2 minutes to be able to provide public comment. We also welcome public comments on applications in other forms. So I would encourage people to write letters if they so desire, if they don't want to speak, or if they feel like they need more time to be able to communicate about these applications. Staff is willing to take those letters and add them to the public record for the board to consider. If you have questions, we do pull them out of the chat, but I would really encourage people to submit their questions so that they can be added to the public record. That way we're not missing them in the chat portion. When that public comment period is over, the applicant will have a chance to rebut if necessary. Sometimes there are no comments against, or there are no public comments, so the applicant is fully welcome not to do a rebuttal if they so wish, and at which time the board reserves the right to make a decision or to delay in consideration of additional public comments on a particular project. I will add that if we do have any elected officials joining us, they are given a little bit more deference in the fact that they represent a greater community, and we allow them 3 minutes for public comment. And the same stands true with elected officials. Please, if you have more comments than time permits, we would really welcome the opportunity to see the public comments in writing. So with that, we'll turn it back over to Sam to walk us through this application. And this is for 1009 Central Avenue, in which they're requesting 4 variances.
All right, so this one was a workshop at the last BZA meeting. 1009 Central Avenue, mixed use community highway. So they're requesting 4 variances. One to allow for 3 wall signs where the maximum permitted is 1, and then a variance for the size of each wall sign. The maximum square footage permitted for a wall sign in the MUCH district is 32 square feet. The 3 signs they're proposing are 75, 48, and 48. With that, here's the project location. And then here are the locations of the signs on the building. So here's the front, the east, and the west sides. We do have the applicant on the call here. So I can just give them the ability to.
Yeah, Sam, has the application changed since it's gone to the public workshop portion of the agenda?
No.
Okay.
All right, so we have the applicant on the call. Russ, you should have the ability to talk.
Microphone is on for one. He may be calling in. Microphone is muted for the other.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Russ, there's some feedback. You may want to, if you're calling in, you may want to mute your computer. That way the computer's not outgoing through your phone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. There's no feedback. Thank you very much. Russ, we can definitely hear your computer.
Pardon me?
I can definitely hear your computer if that's you saying welcome to Zoom.
Yes.
If you want to mute your computer and talk to us on the phone, we can absolutely hear you that way.
I'm calling now.
Okay. It sounds like we can hear you just fine if you want to continue with the application.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't know if you know this particular company is probably a mile or two down the road into the town of Colony. They've been there since 1975. So they're leaving the town of Colony, going into the city of Albany. Not only are they actually are going to occupy this whole building. There were 3 businesses that occupied this particular parcel at one time. They're taking all 3 parts of that building. And I just think a 32 square foot sign is just very limited for the size of that building and the square footage. We have many signs in that area that are much bigger, as numerous, and I'm not sure how 32 square foot was determined for the proper size for that area, but it seems very limited. And it seems like he would be the first business to go down to 32 square feet. But good signage is not just based on square footage. It's based on the size of a building and how a sign prospectively looks like on a particular wall, given the size of the wall space. We've submitted some photos of existing businesses that literally their entire storefront, the signs take up the entire storefronts. And they just feel that the signs that are being proposed are very much needed for their visibility in their new move and the size of their location.
Are you aware of whether those signs were installed under the old zoning code or the current zoning code?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Are you aware of whether those signs were installed as permitted by the old zoning code or the current zoning code?
Yeah, the signs that we took photos of were approved by the former sign criteria. This seems to be the first business to be applying for a variance under the new sign ordinance. And I don't know if they should be penalized. 32 square foot sign on this building is just, it's too small. I think I also sent the drawing down showing a comparison. I don't know if Samuel has that in his um, in his notes. Then there's some corporate sign requirements that they try to meet, Z-Bart.
Sam, do you have the rendering of what compliant signs would look like on the building?
I don't have it in the presentation. I can see if I can pull it up.
While we're discussing that, you mentioned the 32-foot standard. There's 3 signs here that are seeking, I'm getting a lot of feedback. There's 3 signs here that are being considered for variances. 1 is on the front of the building, and 2 are equally sized on either side of the building, facing east and west. In regards to the size of the signs, in each of them, is there a case the applicant is being made that they need to be a standard size for visibility or for traffic safety? And if you want to walk us through each one of those signs individually, that would be helpful.
I think it's more for visibility, traffic safety. The digital signs are more of a hazard for traffic safety. I mean, you go down to where DePaula is. Oh my goodness, they got a digital sign. They got signs on the side of the building, got pole signs. They got signs all over the place. It just seems. Now, if they were to abide by the new ordinance, they would have a 32. Unless their frontage is more than 200 feet. This property frontage is 160 feet along Central Avenue. We're shy by about 40 feet to get up to more than 32 square feet. It just seems, given the size of this building and the amount of square footage that they're occupying, that they really need good signage to get visibility, to people to know that they are now in the city of Albany. That name is very popular with the public as far as what they do, and it's well balanced. It doesn't look large. It looks in proportion to the size of the wall and the building. I mean, if you're taking up thousands and thousands of square footage, and then you're going to have a 132 square foot sign, I think it's detrimental for the business.
I'm wondering if you can also talk about, so the new USDO set this as a standard for this area. So, why should this sign, what's so different for these signs in this company that, they should not have to comply with the requirement of the USDO as the legislature in Albany passed it?
Well, I think,
compared to every other business that's going to come, in the future.
Well, I think what you have to consider here is the adjoint. There's a lot of businesses within walking distance to this location that have multiple signs larger than 32 square feet, and it kind of puts them at in a different position, competitive wise, visually. It doesn't help them compared to all the other signage. Signs are huge in that stretch of Central Avenue. And then to put a 32 square foot sign on a building where they took over 3 businesses in that plaza, it just seems like a hardship.
I just want to stay focused on this particular slide with the corporate sign requirements. It looks like there's a deviation. God, this feedback is rough. I apologize. It looks like there's a deviation between the corporate sign requirements as displayed on this slide and the signs that are being illustrated as part of the application. Is there a reason why the signs in the application deviate from what appear to be the corporate sign requirements?
I can't answer that. This photo was sent down by the corporate people. they do use different types of signs. They're going to use what the box sign, a single face box sign. This was just something to show you normally what they use. Well, not normally what they use, but what other locations have used.
Do you know the dimensions of what the other locations have used to meet the corporate sign requirements?
Yeah, it says in there, this is a mock-up of the location showing what we recommend. Install one 4x12 sign face on the northwest side and one 4x12 foot on the southeast side, not pictured on the building. For the front, the building sign on Central Avenue, we recommend installing. It says 6 foot by 4 foot with shield face. That's new to me. When I initially applied, I applied for what we were given as submitted. If we can get this approved, that would be wonderful too. The 2 4x12s and the shield sign, that would be fine.
Russ, I have one question for clarification. In this slide, it says that this is a mock-up that was provided by corporate with what they recommend. Is it a recommendation or is it a requirement, as mentioned in the header?
This is a recommendation. I could understand your question. It says corporate sign requirements, and then in the text it says this is what we recommend. I understand your question.
Martin, we do have a business owner on the call. I don't know if you wanted to wait until the public comment period or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he's if his comments are related to the application, he should be making his comments as part of that presentation. That there's two benefits there. One, his comments are entered into the record as a representative of the entity, and two, he won't be time limited to 2 minutes. So I think it would be in his best interest if he has anything to add to the application to present now.
Hey, David, you should be able to talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you. And Sam, if you could mute anybody that's not speaking, maybe that would take care of our feedback.
So, if you ever read the book, Johnny Get Your Gun, he's only able to communicate by blinking his eyes. That's kind of how I felt by raising and lowering my hand with a lot of those questions. So now I'm in. Thank you for tagging me in, Russ. I appreciate that. So these actually are franchise requirements. ZBART is a vet-fran member. I'm a veteran, which makes it a veteran-owned business. A little bit of background on the company in Albany. That is actually the oldest ZBART location in the country. It's been there since 1975. It's about a quarter mile up just on the other side of the railroad bridge on the Colony side. So in the last 2 years since we've taken this business over, we've doubled and almost tripled our sales. So we're moving from a 6,000 square foot building into a 16,000 square foot building. As it stands now, our schedule is booked through 6 months out, right? So this will give us an ability to take a little pressure off of our backlog of work. As far as the subject at hand here, I did watch the original video you guys, the original meeting you guys had a couple of weeks ago. And so the reason why the shield logo is being used in the front of the building is a concession on me right out of the gates. We don't need to have that large sign if that was a zoning issue. I fully understand why you guys would have a hesitation on giving us such a large variance. The main avenues of approach clearly are east and west on Central Avenue, which by the car count metrics that our home office uses requires us to have at least 48 square feet of signage on each avenue of approach. Now, with the 3 buildings, so it's 3 actual separate addresses that we're currently occupying, not just 1009. We also have 1015A and 1015B. So that's actually what would have been 3 separate businesses that would have required signs. And we're kind of hoping that we could pool those 3 into the 96 square feet, which would be the the pair of 48 square foot signs that you can see in the drawing. And so I guess the variance that I would really request would be for the additional 24 square feet, which is the logo on the front, if that makes sense.
Can I just rephrase what you just stated to make sure I understood? You're saying that, so because really it's 3 different addresses, so it's one business taking over 3 different addresses. And so you're thinking of it as you should be allowed to put the signs that 3 different address, like if it was 3 different businesses, each would be allowed a sign, and you want to pool those signs into one sign. And that, and I didn't follow all the math, but were you saying that the space, the size of all the signs is, the signs you're asking for is smaller than all 3 signs for all 3, if it was 3 different businesses?
So first off, the signage that we're requesting is already smaller than the signage that was in place by Empire Visions, Prompt Care, and a business called Tint World that we occupied the buildings after. After watching the meeting that you guys had about this project, I realized that yes, having a large, so we have 2 48 square foot signs, right? So that's 96 square feet. And then requesting a variance for both of those and the large sign that we wanted up front, I realized that could be unreasonable. And so even though we've already purchased these signs, I am at no small cost, not to mention the cost of renovating this building, but my thought process was to scale down the street facing sign so that if it were 3 separate buildings, all entitled to 32 square feet each, we would have met that with the east-west facing signs. And so my request would be just to have, for brand recognition, and because corporate does require us to have both the logo sign and then the shields sign on each site, to place that on the front of the building just for added recognition. And I would add that we've been in place less than a mile away for almost half a century. And so when our large existing customer base drives by that, I'm afraid they're going to think we're out of business because they're not going to be able to see our sign down the street. If it's 132 square foot sign, it'll completely destroy our growth plans.
So is what I'm hearing that, you listened to our last conversation and you're willing to sort of change what your requested variance is that?
Well, yeah, I'm a business owner. Of course I want visibility, right? So I went for, without knowing the zoning laws, that was my request when I started speaking with Russ from Ray Signs. And, I guess the zoning code's changed in the last few years. And, as we found that out and I listened to the objections, that's right. Okay. So we're asking for a substantial amount over what the zoning provides. I'm willing to, without even any negotiation, shrink the front facing sign by 75%. I just asked, and I guess the most important thing for me is even if we're not allowed to have a street facing sign, which I'd like to argue we could really use, but at least the 96 square feet, which would be the east and west facing signs on the sides of the building, just to get the attention of passersby as well as existing customers that might be traveling to our old location that they might have been going to for decades.
I guess maybe it's more a question for Martin or Sam. So we started, you asked at the beginning of the presentation, has this application changed any? It sounds like there's a willingness to change it so that the questions were
minimize the variance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm wondering if we need to get everything updated so we know what we're actually evaluating rather than
I think we're a compliance-based business, and we like to make partners with So we currently have branches in the Syracuse area and in the Utica area. And we very much want to grow into multiple locations in the Albany area. And so the way that you get to the way an organization grows like that is by meeting local representatives and making sure you're compliant with all local regulations. This wouldn't be a problem in Syracuse. It wouldn't be a problem in Utica. So I was unaware that it might be an issue in Albany. And so upon hearing the objection to the size of our signs, my first reaction is to drastically shrink at least one of them, and then have a chance to explain why the other two signs would be so large, right? So I don't think they're exceedingly large, but in the scope of if we're only allowed 32 square feet for one building face. So I thought that maybe the fact that we're taking 3 buildings that would be empty and unoccupied, and then renovating them and then filling them with jobs might actually help us, build a case to pool at least the 96 square feet. And if it's okay, we'd love to ask for a variance on an additional 24 square feet on the front of the building to help us with branding.
So I think what we need to do is make sure that our pencils are sharp in the applications before us, so we know clearly what we're approving, and the public has an opportunity to respond to the application on the table. I appreciate hearing that due to one of our requirements, the minimum variance necessary is what the board should be considering. So I'm happy to hear that you are looking at the application in that vein. And it sounds to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the two most important elements of this application are visibility from the east and west and traffic approaching this building from those areas. So those two signs, sounds like you're suggesting wouldn't be modified in the application, but the sign on the front of the building is the one that you're willing to reduce the size of.
Right, and if the rendering that's currently on the screen is actually a reflection of that. So it would have been a 70, I think, the exact dimensions I don't have in front of me. I think it's a 75 square foot sign or something to that effect. So it would have the script Z-bar next to it. And so what this does is it takes 2/3 of that, or actually I think it's 3/4 of it. It's been a long day and I'm not going to do math, guys, but
you heard us before.
It substantially reduces the size of it, right? And that was just my, without any negotiation, that's what I wanted to do. That being said, there's 3 signs. I did give Russ, I believe he forwarded that to Samuel. There are 3 signs that we're permitted to post, and it's actually part of our franchise agreement that we use. Those 3 signs, we're not allowed to fabricate our own signs, right? So there's the very large one, which has the shield and then the company name. There's a smaller one, which is what we're using on the 2 sides, and then there's the smallest one, which is the shield, right? And so our thinking is to get branding. We're not as established in Albany as we are in the other markets. To get the branding, we want our full name clearly, clearly readable. But I'm thinking now, looking at this rendering, if we were to go with the 3 24 square foot signs, and we're allowed to put, I could probably get permission from home office to just put lettering next to the side. That's an avenue we can take as well. It would take up less square footage overall, and it would accomplish the same mission. But you guys think that would make it easier to gain a variance here?
I think that you need to amend the application if you're willing to, and that's something for you to consider. I can't tell you, like, if you do this, we will do this. It has to be the application as you present it, and then we can take action on it.
Sure.
The other element I want to go back to, and Sam, one of the variances is to allow 3 wall signs where a maximum permitted is 1. Is that is per face of the building, or is that per total building?
It's per street frontage.
For street frontage. So if we're looking at this particular application, if you can go back to the building, are there 3 signs on the front of the building or on the sides? I didn't see that. Are we correct in our interpretation that there will be 3 signs per frontage? Area variance 101 to allow 3 wall signs where the maximum permitted is 1. there's a total of 3 signs, but each sign is on a different face of the building.
Yeah, so those wouldn't be frontages though, because they don't actually front the street.
Okay.
So
there's
yeah,
3 signs. Okay. Because these are not streets, we're considering it one frontage.
right.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
So the frontage would be then just the signage that's directly facing the street?
Right. Right. And that's
So
hence
would be
the
8
first element of the variance.
So it would be 8 square feet under, right? If it's a 24 square foot
It's
sign?
more of a count of signs. The first variance is being requested is for the count, not the size. There's 4 elements to the variance. One is number of signs, and the remaining 3 variances are for the sizes of the signs. So there's 4 variances in total.
Right.
Okay.
And I just want to, and I know this wasn't part of the initial application process, which I agree it clearly needs to be revisited, but the fact that when we initially applied here, we only had access to the one building. Since then, we're able to acquire the other 2, which is part of the reason why it says 1009 and not 1009, 1015A and 1015C, which is the actual campus of buildings that we'll be occupying. So would you suggest that we start the application over, annotate the individual buildings that we will be occupying, and then go with the reduced signage?
I can't walk you through the application, but I can suggest that if there are elements or arguments that you're making in your application related to the number of businesses you're taking over, that you may be allowed to have 1 sign per individual address, that's something to communicate with staff and amend your application for. It's up to you to make your best case and us to review it. And it would be unfair of me to make suggestions to make what we would consider suggestions. But I
understand. I understand that. And
yeah,
is hardship something that you guys consider when we make variances?
Hardship is not part of the area variance requirements.
Right.
You can certainly put that in the application to help make your case, but it is not one of the tests that we're required by law to review.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe when working through the application, the planning department staff, so through Sam and can help guide you through that, and you can work with planning department staff.
Yeah, we can coordinate.
Yeah. The only other, I wouldn't say a suggestion, but a question from us would be, are there specific elements of the building where the building has, and we've asked this of other applicants in the past, where there are elements architecturally or structurally of the building which would require the applicant to put a sign of a certain size so that they match the aesthetics of the building. And that's a question you don't have to answer now, but if we're looking at the amendment of the application, that may be one thing to look into.
The building goes back about, let's see, about 1,000 feet. And so having a 32 square foot sign, like Russ said, would be invisible.
Okay. Unless we have any more comments from the applicant or the representative, Sam, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak in regards to this application?
We did not have anybody sign up. If anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand. Or I guess I'll leave that up to you, Martin, if you want to take comment if nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up. Doesn't look well. If nobody signed up and nobody's raising their hand, I guess that answers the question.
Okay.
But we know that there's some other elements of the application that the applicant is going to go back and modify. So I don't think the board is going to take any action on this. We'll leave it open for public comment. And then we'll have a revised application before us next time we meet, which will be in May. And at that point in time, I feel like we should be able to make some progress and perhaps make a decision, but I won't hold it to that. So.
Thank you, folks, for giving me a chance to speak. And Samuel, I'll reach out to you regarding the reapplication.
Yeah,
sounds good.
And just be clear, Sam, it's not a reapplication, but a revision.
Amendment.
So we're clear on the language in the minutes, so. Great. Thanks. If you want to go back to the agenda, there is some question as to whether the applicant is available for this particular hearing for, I'll call it the mobile station application. Do we know if the applicant is available to present their case?
I do not see the applicant or the representative on the call. If anybody is here representing the applicant, please raise your hand.
And Sam, you communicated you believe the applicant's representative has changed for the representing agent, so there may be a good reason why they're not able to speak on behalf of the application. Or wait, we have hands raised. We do. Looks like we have Mr. Slayman and Ms. Carlson in the audience raising their hands. So we do look like we have representatives.
I'm sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm Cheyenne Lupon. I'm the one representing this today. I apologize. I don't know if I'm showing up in here.
We can hear you.
Okay, well, here I am. I guess I don't think that there was much that we had changed on this application for the 253 New Scotland Avenue location. We just really want to change out the current price digits to LED price digits. We don't want to change any square footage or anything of that sort. And most of what's listed in this application is what I'm pretty much going to be reiterating, which is it'll be safer for employees to, manually change these digits or the pricers to the current gas prices. It'll be safer for drivers who are passing by, and this sign was already established prior to the new USDO code. So we don't want to change anything other than the pricers.
So I guess before we have you, why will it be safer for the employees? Are there inherent risks in the current sign which are not present from the LED sign?
No, they wouldn't have to go out into the parking lot. They would be avoiding traffic. It's manual, so they'd be able to do it from inside their building, inside their space where, they handle their business. There's no risk of any sort that's not being shown on the application or, anything like that. But it would be safer as to the fact that they can do it from where they're at instead of having to go and change things out on the sign itself, if that makes sense.
Are there other reasons for them to have to go out of the building?
Yes. I personally don't know what they would need to other than that, but maybe I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
Well, you had stated it'd be safer for them not to go into the parking lot. So I'm just curious if there are documented safety risks in leaving the building to go to the sign.
No, not necessarily. I think that, I don't necessarily understand their job description to a T, but just based on this sign, it would make things easier on the employee themselves to be able to switch the prices of the gas from where they currently are instead of having to go outside up to the sign, changing these things out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand the convenience. It's just the safety aspect I did not understand. Sam, could you talk a little bit about the size? There was some public comment, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but whether the size of the electronic copy is in compliance with the zoning code?
So the whole thing is legally non-conforming as it stands. So the provision that's in question is the alteration, not necessarily anything having to do with the size. Depending on the interpretation on the square footage of the digits, these are not like HD displays where the whole where it's the whole thing that's moving. So you could, either take the square footage of, the 24-inch by 9.5-inch rectangle, or just take the square footage and, trace over the digits, because those are the only things that are moving. I guess that one, can be interpreted in different ways as to what actually is the, changeable text. But as far as, for the purposes of the variance, the provision that's being called into question goes to the alteration of a legally non-conforming sign.
And if I'm applying the 5-part test, I mean, one of the requirements of the board is that the applicant minimize the variance, bring the sign towards compliance, not depart from compliance, go further away from complying with it. So that's one of the considerations that I'm asking the applicant. Are there efforts that are being made for this particular application to bring the sign further into compliance, or are we looking at this application deviating from the standard as it currently exists in greater degree? Because it seems like we're measuring it in not just a departure, but a greater deviation from the code if we're considering the size of the electronic copy.
As far as the sizes go, I do have the dealer the dealer from Global Partner on this phone call on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So they should be able to answer a question like that. As our main argument is just that we are not looking to necessarily change any square footage whatsoever of the existing sign. We're using the same cabinet, same everything. We just want to change out from the fluorescent pricers that are existing to the LED price digits. So if they're available to answer a question of that sort, that's why we have them on the call.
Well, I think it's more of a question for the plan department, in that if there's a deviation from to modify, let me put it this way, if there's a modification to a legally non-conforming sign, and that modification doesn't bring the legally non-conforming sign closer to compliance, but it goes further away from being compliance, I think that adds to the level of, I'd say, substantiality in this particular application. And I'll ask a different question. In the application, it was mentioned that this sign, when it came to community character, was in line with character of the neighborhood, and that other service stations in the area had similar types of signs. Could the applicant provide any evidence of other service stations in this neighborhood, in the immediate area, or this zoning district that are of similar size or scope?
I believe it's the page that's listed right here. So these are the signs that we are comparing ours to. They also they're very similar design in itself, as well as the LED price digits. So this is what we're comparing to.
What are the zoning districts for those particular signs?
Give me 1 second. I can
Mhm.
get that for you.
Sam, I'll start with 64 Calvin.
Okay.
And I think we don't have to do this now, but if we're making the comparison between this particular sign and other signs, we should, one, know what their maximum allowed height is. We should, two, know if they're higher, what their actual size is. We should also know the neighborhood that they're in for the zoning. And finally, if it's the applicant's, I'll say testimony, for lack of a better term, that these are similar locations, because none of them are in the immediate neighborhood for this particular sign.
That's what I was going to say,
yeah.
Martin. I just punched all these locations in, and I don't know if it's appropriate to acknowledge this, but the closest one is the Washington Avenue, and that's a mile away. The next one's
Right.
over a mile, and the next one's like 2.7 miles. So I'd be interested to hear how that's considered.
Yeah, and
Well,
I also believe these were installed under the old zoning code.
I apologize. My phone went out, so I'm so sorry. I answered your question. It just wasn't coming
Okay.
through. I'm I'm so sorry. I don't know the zoning districts, but yes, when we were doing, a comparison, they were within like a 2-mile radius of the site that we are hoping to work on. And I guess we weren't looking at I was not personally looking at parcels. So I'm not sure, if that falls within the exact same neighborhood.
Right. I would contest these are substantially different neighborhoods than the gas station we're looking at. So I think it's in the applicant's interest to be able to tease out why they believe that these particular sites are peer sites to this gas station. I guess one of the biggest questions I have is why or what effort has been made the applicant to try to minimize the variance or bring the sign closer into compliance by perhaps putting in a smaller monument sign as it looks like these locations have.
I have the project manager and the dealer on the line that may be able to help answer that question.
You have their names? So
Yeah,
I know who
there's
to-
Ellen Carlson, and I don't know who the name of the dealer. I apologize.
Okay, Ellen Carlson, you should be able to speak.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So the cost to change the sign would be significant from where it is today. So we'd have to remove that down, and the visibility to go to a monument sign, the dealer would really be impacted by sales, because if you're limited to a monument, a standard monument sign, you're not going to be able to see that. And then if you're going to limit it to also manual digits, you're not going to have that LED so that customers will be able to see the gas prices when they're driving by. So, in talking with this, we thought that the best approach would be to keep the existing sign and to just upgrade to the LED. I know we were talking about safety of employees, but if there was only one employee there and gas prices need to be changed, they can't leave the interior of the building to go outside just for safety reasons and for theft or anything else possible. So, in the best interest of the employees and then for the customers, because you're actually, right now they can see that there's a mobile there, but if you reduce that, you're really going to hurt sales for the owner of the station.
So if there's a cost calculation that's being added to the record for hardship here, that should be part of the application. The second element I'll make is, how long has this gas station been here?
I do not have that information, fortunately. Cheyenne.
In Albany
I don't
for
know if it's on the app.
40 years, and the gas station
Yeah.
has been there for 40 years. It's actually in my neighborhood. And I would be very surprised if people all of a sudden didn't realize the station was no longer there, given it has quite a presence. It's on a corner. It has signage that's a part of the hood over the gas pumps. You couldn't ask for a more visible location in this neighborhood. So it would just be a surprise to me that modifying the sign would have an impact on operations of the business or the profitability.
We have some
To
stuff.
provide that as part of the application, that would be great to have as part of the record.
Martin, we had some stuff on file from like the mid-90s, although the records are not really detailed at all from back then, but it existed at least in 1994. So that helps.
Thank you. I apologize for not having that information prior to this. This is honestly my first meeting, so thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate your questions. Any feedback is fantastic. That way we can, provide what you are all looking for. So thank you again.
I talk a lot, so I'll see if any other board members have questions.
Uh,
About
I
this
think I
particular
have two
application.
things, right? Like, so I think Martin has mentioned that a couple times, but the requirement, right, under the code that the variance is being sought for is that, you know, the alteration that you're looking to do, you know, is to a non-conforming sign. And so it's not about size of the sign or anything, but it's about the fact that the code requires for such a change to the non-conforming sign that you have, that, you know, you try and get the sign, the structure closer to compliance with the code. And I haven't heard really or seen much in the application that addresses that at all, right? Like, so I think, you know, that needs to be addressed and fleshed out. I think, as Martin said, you know, you mentioned a cost analysis of replacing the sign and changing it to try and bring it into compliance. That is something that, you know, is relevant to this application and should be part of the record and needs to be reviewed. And then, just for clarity's sake, you've mentioned a couple times, you know, employees having to go. So you're saying that the way the sign is currently set up, you have to have an employee physically and manually go and change the prices, like on a ladder or something. I mean, I think, you know, those details need to be added into the record. And I think more detail is better than less detail.
Yeah, and
Like
also,
just saying safety without explaining the detail of why it's a safety concern, or what it entails for the currently for this prices to be updated and change. How often does it happen? You know, how often do the prices changes? Do employees do it in the morning, multiple times a day? You mentioned that if there's only one employee, all of this are things that I think you've alluded to, but need to go be in
More
more
detail.
provided more detail.
yeah, that was
Yeah,
my
that makes
curiosity
sense.
too. Prices of gasoline, I would be a surprise to me if they changed midday. So if the station is not open 24 hours, which I don't believe it is, that would necessitate either a change of price between non-operating hours, or before somebody starts their shift, they update the sign. So that information would be valuable to the application. Thank you, Adriana, for pointing that out.
And I think, like we said to the previous applicant, some of this stuff, you know, the planning department staff is available to applicants to help work through applications.
That's a really good tool to utilize. Thank you. I totally see what you're saying with how there could have been more information included. I guess we were just a little bit unaware of, you know, what questions would come up during this. So I'm glad we have that feedback. It does say on page 13 that, you know, a remote control is used to change the fuel prices from inside the store instead of having to manually change the plastic number cards using a pull outside. So there's a little bit of detail, but I understand that you guys are looking for more at this point.
And if you all use an LED sign for the gas prices, since the gas station, well, first of all, is the gas station open 24 hours or not?
I do not have that answer handy. I apologize
No.
for that.
Can you still hear me? It is not.
Okay.
Okay, so since it's not open 24 hours, is the plan to keep the LED sign open on for the 24-hour span, or to turn them off at some point?
No, it would be off once the station is closed.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Sam, I don't have any additional questions. I'm sure we're going to mull over this for some bit, but as we get some more information from the applicant, but seeing that we have the opportunity, as this is a public hearing, to get some comments from members of the public, do we have anybody that has been signed up to speak from the public tonight?
We do not have anybody sign up, so I'll leave it up to you if you want to.
Okay.
Give people the
We
opportunity.
do have a number of public comments that need to be added to the record on the website. And I think those comments are an important component of the public record from people that live near and around the station that the applicant may want to respond to. I do want to, since we're going to go back and get more information about this application, we won't be taking any action tonight on the application. We will keep a public record open. If there are additional comments from the public, we will certainly take this case up at our next opportunity to have a public hearing. And unless any of my fellow board members have any more questions or comments in regards to this particular application, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting for
Are
tonight.
there hands raised in the attendee?
Oh, I'm just seeing
Yeah, those are the applicants.
applicants. All right, if they still want,
Sorry.
right.
I mean, I don't know. Are they all there? There were free. Okay.
There's none now.
Okay, there's none now.
All right. Technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right? So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to attend the meeting tonight. I appreciate the work people are doing to sharpen the applications and provide answers to the board questions. Thank you to board members and staff as well. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Adriana. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paige. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Sam. When is the next meeting date we have? I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Next meeting is May 18th.
May 18th. All right, great. I look forward to seeing our faces on May 18th then. Until then, folks, have a great sunshiny spring. We'll talk.
Bye.